Years ago, I witnessed something I should not have. My name is Sarah. I was born and raised in a small town in Germany. I live alone with nothing but my loving grandma and our dog. We live in a small apartment consisting of my grandma's bedroom, my own room, a larger living room, a very small kitchen, and even smaller bathroom. Our apartment is built with a hallway type system where you'd have one long thin hallway from the entrance to the bathroom and 4 doorways leading to the remaining rooms I listed prior. The living room also has a door leading to a decently sized balcony. Especially at night, half of the living room would now be cast in a dark blue shadow mixed from both moonlight and the night itself. It was the home I grew up in, with a beautiful view out of every window and only a handful of morbidly questionable neighbors to irritate me. I was happy here until precisely 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in June 2021, I was awoken from my deep sleep when I heard a strange noise coming from my window. Now, we were on the second level of our building, and while we do have a tree behind our house, it's way too far away from any window to disturb us. I was, for obvious reasons, confused and irritated, but I did not think much of it at first. However, I personally struggle with keeping up on my hydration on a serious medical level, so whenever I wake up, I have this unquenchable thirst for some water or fruit juice, anything to stop my stomach from aching. Feeling the pain once again, I decided to go through our hallway into the kitchen to fix myself a quick drink before heading back to bed. At night, the hallway always unsettled me. Sure, I had the glorious beam of light coming from our hallway lamp to protect me, but the switch was literally on the other end of the hallway. There was something off about this hallway at night, not necessarily the darkness either. Due to my grandma being claustrophobic, we had pretty much all the doors open. Walking through our hallway just makes you feel exposed. There's a doorway providing a corner to hide behind every 2 steps. Brave as I was, I carried on, getting to the kitchen and pouring myself a nice cold glass of water. And there it was again, the noise, a tapping of some kind. I wanted to chalk it off as some animal, maybe a bird, having interest in our windows, but I got curious. This led to me making the biggest mistake of my life. I decided to listen for the tapping, trying to pinpoint the exact origin of the noise, the living room. Being brave as always, I quickly turned on the hallway lights, then peeked into the living room, only for my heart to almost stop. Outside on the balcony, a tall, slim figure with a massive disturbing grin observed me. He stood there, his head leaned to one side like that of a puppy when he saw I noticed him. I was paralyzed by fear when his grin grew larger. He slowly pressed himself against the window, making his features much clearer. He seemed humanoid in form, having a slender human-like torso. He had wide, thin shoulders and extremely long legs and arms. His neck seemed almost human in a disturbing way, while his head was anything but human. He had this almost cartoon-like oversized grin with massive teeth. He had gray eyes with visible veins bulging out of his face, and a heavily scarred nose that reminded me of Chris Walker from Outlast. In retrospect, you couldn't blame me for thinking I was just dreaming or hallucinating. However, there was something off. I wanted to go the child's route and rush to my grandma's room and cry, but I did not dare look away from it. With some courage, I turned to face the direction my grandma's room was in, and then quickly turned back to whatever this thing was. He slowly lifted one of his arms, revealing a long, spindly hand that honestly resembled more of a spider than of a human hand. The fact that his fingers were adorned by long, yellowish fingernails did not help. He lifted his finger against the glass window, tapping 3 times before pointing at me. He then pointed to the direction of my grandma's room, shushing at me. He tapped 3 times again, leaving some kind of black mud on the window. I passed out and fell unconscious shortly after. When I woke up, I was in the local hospital, surrounded by doctors, nurses, and my grandma. A tube was connected to my arm, slowly pumping blood into my veins. I tried to explain what happened, but the doctors quickly brushed it off as the hallucinations of a dehydrated mind. I was given medication and allowed back home. I was almost inclined to believe the doctor's explanation on what I saw, but when we returned home, I saw that the black mud was still on the window, just like it was when I passed out. This made me wary, and for good reason. I never forgot the noise of the tapping. It felt distinct and threatening. More so did I never forget the amount. He tapped 3 times, and my first encounter with him was 2 years ago. Ever since, I constantly see him stalking me in some way or another. I find claw markings on random wooden furniture, get random goosebumps whenever I pass the living room, and constantly feel like I'm being watched by something. For the last 2 years, this mudman, as I come to call him, has been stalking me in no ways a human could. I'd find tiny drops of black mud in my closet and occasionally see a shape similar to his in the corner of my eye. I have tried to do research on his entity, but all I got were results of the Slender Man or the Gross Man. No one wants to believe me, thinking I just had some brain trauma or unsolved delusions since I passed out. I have no ways to find out what is going on or how to defend myself, and we are getting closer to June, the month where I first saw the Mudman. I'm scared. In the last few months, we repeatedly found deep claw marks and drops of black mud on our windows and our balcony door. My grandma believes this to be some sort of animal. She doesn't believe my story, and neither does she show any interest in the mud. But due to her being scared that it's a burglar, I at least managed to convince her to repeatedly swap out the locks. I don't think that will be enough. We are closing in on the 3rd year. The Mudman wants inside, and I doubt I'll be able to stop him. I am spending this night wary of my surroundings to tell you this, to warn you all, to inspire you to prepare yourself before he arrives, and I am certain that he will. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually he will. I could hear him clawing at the lock, tapping on the windows. Never investigate. Do not let him in. You may wish me luck for the remainder of my time, but I don't think it will be of any use. He's here. Soon. This happened around 10 months ago, give or take about a year. My friend Craig and I made plans to go hang out with our friend Jeremy and his new girlfriend. Neither of us had to work the next day, so we grabbed some beers and made our way to Jeremy's apartment complex, where he was staying with his mom. When we got there, we went out into the woods behind the complex to drink. This wasn't just a little patch of trees, but a good-sized patch of forest. For context, this was in New York State. It was a nice fall day, late afternoon, and the sun was still out. We finished the beers and decided to go get more. So we go to the store, get some more beer, head back to the apartments, and enter the woods. This was during autumn, and the light outside was right at that stage where it starts to fade very quickly. We underestimated how dark it would be once we were in the woods, and how fast the light was fading away. We planned on making a fire, but didn't really count on it being so dark when we got back. So we were walking into this sort of clearing area from where you can choose to head up in a few different directions. We were having a good time, laughing, talking, but something not too far in the distance catches my eye. It's too dark to tell, but I swear I can see a very large figure. No, that's too big. It's probably a tree or just my eyes fucking with me. So as Jeremy is gabbing in the background, I ask Craig, as an aside, if he can see something staying up ahead. He's like, nah, where? Oh wait, there. Oh shit. We were still walking and it was becoming clear that I wasn't seeing things. There was a very large person standing in the forest up ahead, apparently facing us. So I tried to get Jeremy's attention without cluing to the big guy that we've noticed him, just in case something sketchy is going on, which I get the serious feeling there is. We tell Jeremy there's a person up ahead, but Jeremy is in a no chill state, and he exclaims, "Holy shit, is that Bigfoot?" We humor him and laugh, but it's clear to Craig and I that this is actually creepy and probably not a safe situation. It's clear that Jeremy is not understanding that. It's hard to communicate the pacing of our approach to this guy, but essentially we have gotten too close not to acknowledge him, partially because it took us a moment to get Jeremy's attention, and partially because we weren't trying to just turn around and run like we're scared. There were 4 of us and 1 of him after all. But this was a big guy. Not supernaturally big or anything, and not like he was jacked or anything like that. Just a naturally gigantic dude. Very tall and heavy without being particularly fat. And he was just standing there, in the middle of a forest, in the dark, alone. So we approached this guy and just sort of say hello. Jeremy, the absolute fool that he was, gets way too close into this guy's personal space, and he enthusiastically tells him how scary he looks standing there in the woods alone. "We thought you were an alien or something, bro. I thought you were gonna jump up and bleh." Jeremy minds an extra set of teeth coming out of his mouth like a xenomorph from the Alien vs. Predator movies, all up in this guy's face. To be clear, Jeremy is not trying to be intimidating or a jerk in any way. He is trying to be friendly and joke around with this guy, but he is literally leaning into this dude and practically sticking his hands in his face with his alien impression. Did I mention Jeremy was kind of a moron? Jeremy was kind of a moron. Love you, Jeremy. You were kind of a moron. And Jeremy's poor girlfriend, who was a few years younger than us and very shy, was clearly terrified, to which Jeremy was also oblivious. So Craig and I are both standing there, kind of trying to brainstorm a way out of this situation. Jeremy is too dense to get it if we say that we have to go. He'd be like, "What? We just got here. Aren't we starting a fire?" And we were trying to seem confident and in control of the situation. Big guy says, "Oh, you guys are drinking? I got some drinks too." And he walks over to the tree line where he has a big bag laying beside a tree. He reaches in the bag, and while he grabs his beer with one hand, he sort of sneakily pulls something else out with his other hand and places it into his hoodie pocket. I'm convinced it was a knife or a gun. Probably a knife in all honesty. He then reapproaches us and cracks open his beer. I glance around casually, and then I notice something else. Somebody else is out there. There's someone moving along in the tree line to our left. A relatively good distance away, but somebody else is here. And they're circling around us as if to come up behind us. Fuck this. I need to leave now. So I go, "Well, I gotta work in the morning and Craig's driving me home, so we gotta get out of here." Jeremy, in his indefinite wisdom, responds, "What? You said you didn't have work tomorrow." I facepalm so hard on the inside. "No, Jeremy, you must have misheard me. I said I do have to work tomorrow." And Jeremy, proving there's no end to his wisdom, says, "Alright guys, well, it was nice hanging out with you. Get home safe." He wasn't leaving the woods with us. Craig and I started walking away, and I told him about the other person circling to get behind us and that we needed to move. We start trying to brainstorm a way to get Jeremy and his girlfriend out of here, and decide to call him and tell him that his mom was out in the parking lot looking for him. Jeremy is terrified of his mom, Craig explains to me, and this should work. Because we clearly couldn't just call him and tell him that the situation was not safe without him blurting out, "This guy isn't sketchy, I feel totally safe." Jeremy was very mad at us for lying about his mom. I think his girlfriend appreciated it though. I'm not sure what was going on there that night. I've talked to several people about it over the years, and there are a few different ideas. Did they know we were coming back? Were they waiting for us? Or did we stumble into something we weren't meant to? Almost everyone I tell about this says, "You guys just accidentally interrupted a drug deal." But something about that just doesn't seem right. Who does a drug deal in the middle of the woods at night? I don't know. Very possibly just two homeless dudes with no ill intention, but it was a very creepy and scary situation, and I just thought I would share. I remember the day our universe, aged and wary, whispered its final secrets to the cold expanse of space. Our spaceship, the Eternity, harbored the last of humanity, a flickering candle in an endless night. We were nomads, wandering through dying stars, searching for a new cradle for our species. That's when we found it, the planet. It was a jewel against the darkness, lush and inviting. Our hearts swelled with hope. I was to lead humanity's final descent. As we approached, I couldn't shake off a creeping unease, a whisper in the back of my mind, warning me of something ancient and unfathomable. The planet's beauty was hypnotizing. Oceans shimmering under a constellation unfamiliar yet oddly comforting. We prepared to land, hearts brimming with newfound hope. But as we descended, the ground, it moved. Not like the tremor of quakes, but a heaving, like the chest of a slumbering giant. The revelation hit me in a suffocating wave. This planet, our salvation, was alive. A cosmic entity, immeasurable, ancient, slumbering in the void. Panic erupted. Crew members cried out in terror, scrambling for controls that suddenly felt meaningless. The planet, no, the creature, stirred. Its breath was the wind, its whispers the falling of leaves. In its awakening, it noticed us, an insignificant irritation, a disturbance of its eon-long slumber. Then it spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts that invaded our minds. A language born before time. It spoke of hunger, an endless gnawing hunger that had grown over millennia. It saw us not as saviors of our kind, but as a sustenance, a morsel to feed its endless appetite. In our arrogance, we had not found a new home. We have delivered ourselves into the maw of an indescribable horror. The ship shuddered, groaning under the grip of the creature. I saw it then, through the viewport, a glimpse of its true form. A sprawling mass of darkness, its eyes like dying stars. It drew us in, the hull creaking, the screams of my crew swallowed by the void. I stood, transfixed by the horror and beauty of this cosmic entity, a force beyond our understanding. In his eyes, I saw the death of stars, the end of all things. And at that moment, I understood. The universe was not a cradle for life, but a vast, uncaring graveyard. We were not pioneers, but the last whispers of a forgotten song, fading into the silence of eternity. I don't know if this message will ever find another soul. The universe is vast, and we are but a speck caught in the gaze of an ancient, hungry cosmos. Perhaps this message will drift forever, unheeded, through the cold, uncaring void. I send this message not with the expectation of rescue, but to give this message. We are not masters of this universe, but fleeting shadows against a backdrop of timeless and celestial giants. Captain Elena Marov.